I really appreciate you asking the questions that you ask and giving me an opportunity to reflect on my life. I don't have that opportunity very often, and going so deep. So I really appreciate it.
Well, Luis, I appreciate you, and I got goosebumps a number of times in our conversation. Hi, I'm Topaz Adizes, and I'm the founder of the Emmy Award-winning series, The And. The End has been an incredible journey for the past 12 years. We've brought in over 1,250 pairs to have incredible conversations. Through this work, I've had the privilege of witnessing the bold and the beautiful and the heart-wrenching, the conversations that reveal us. And what I've learned through these incredible experiences is that life shapes us. Now I'm ready to share these learnings and reflections here with you to dive deeper. We're going to be speaking to people I find incredible. I'm going to be asking them questions that reveal their life's journey. Luis Velasquez is an executive coach, Stanford leadership facilitator, and is self-described recovering scientist. His journey is defined by extreme deltas, from growing up in poverty during the civil war in Guatemala to earning a PhD in fungal genetics and eventually coaching the top leaders of Silicon Valley. Along the way, Luis has faced challenges that would break most, navigating life as an immigrant, surviving a life-threatening brain tumor twice, and testing the limits of the human spirit as an endurance athlete with over 100 marathons and ultra marathons under his belt. His real gift lies in his ability to find the master of reframing in any situation. What would you do if you realized that the power of choice is the greatest gift you already have? The idea is to take intermission from life. If we look at our lives, there's certain experiences that we have that shape us, that they have really wonderful, profound lessons in them. And hopefully we can explore that through your life lesson such that someone else listening might be able to garner the wisdom from your life and apply it to their own life. And then we'll kind of take it in this, in a structure of, from this quote that I love by David Viscott, which says, the purpose of life is to find your gift, and the work of life is to develop your gift, and the meaning of life is to give your gift away. And so that's kind of the structure that we'll take. I mean, Luis, I don't even know where to begin other than to ask you to tell me your life story, because I've looked you up, I've researched you, and it just seems like life has thrown every challenge that it could to you. I mean, it just seems like you have overcome a number of challenges that some people may face one or twice in their life, but you have faced brain tumor, divorce, coming from a war-torn country, immigration, loss of job, doing ultra marathons. I mean, it just, so can you tell me your life story? And maybe not the whole life, but like, what's your earliest memory?
That is that is something that I can tell you that completely shaped my life. You know, my earliest memory, my first memory. I grew up in Guatemala, Central America. We were very poor. You know, we were dirt poor, literally dirt poor. We didn't have floors in our house. My dad was a truck driver, and sometimes he will go, you know, away for 2-3 days, in his routes of work. And I was attached to him. I was very attached to him. My first memory is he and I developed a game of hide and seek. And I don't know, but maybe I was like 3-4 years old, maybe something around like that. And the game was like this, if we needed to leave, he will say, okay, let's play hide and seek. And then he will pretend to hide, and I will start looking for him. But what he was doing is he was leaving for his route. And sometimes, he will go for 2-3 days. I kept looking for him every single day. But here is what it was very interesting, that I remember that I knew that he was gone. So I knew that he was gone, yet I kept looking for him. And that has been something that has manifested throughout my life. That I tend to reframe things as a protection mechanism for myself, which later became something that I'm, that I really appreciate about it. But that's the first early memory, is how I was protecting myself from the grief of seeing my father, gone, but just keep looking for him, knowing that he was gone.
Makes me think of that movie, Life is Beautiful. Have you seen that film?
Yes.
Where he's facing this, travesty of the Holocaust and this, and he decides to make it into a game with his son.
Yes. Yes. Just
Reframing.
I never saw the connection until you mention it, and that movie was so brutal. But I can see how the parallel between what I used to do and this movie. And in this case, he was making the whole thing for his child.
Yeah.
In my movie, I was the one that I was, faking it,
Making it.
And reframing it as a way to protect myself.
Do you remember the first time you played that game, or do you remember playing the game for the third, fourth time and kind of realizing that he's gone and yet you're still going to play?
No, I don't remember when we play it the first time.
Right.
My first memory of, is me playing that game and realizing that he was gone and still looking for him. You see what I'm saying? So we probably played earlier.
Right. So what your first, so I'm going to play back. What I'm hearing you say is your first memory is seeking in the game of hide and seek. You're looking for your dad, and then the realization hits you, wait, he's gone. And then the choice comes, which is, I'm going to keep playing.
No. I think that it wasn't, the realization didn't come in that particular first memory. I already knew that he was gone. And I think that when I think back about this, it wasn't a game anymore. It was a way to make myself comfortable and make myself believe that my dad is still in the house. It's almost like a protection mechanism for myself. I want my dad to be here. So I keep looking for him, knowing, in my young at the age that he was gone. So it was almost like pretend, but it wasn't. I guess it was a game, but it was more of a defense mechanism, protection.
Yeah. And did you know it? When did you realize this was a defense mechanism for you? Was this later in life? Did you realize that memory? Oh my God, that's what I've been doing? Or were you cognizant then?
Yeah. It was much, much later in life. The funny thing is that, my, so now where did that come from? I can trace it back to my mom. There was moments that we didn't have much to eat, you see, and she will come up with these stories about the food that we were about to eat, reframing things. I remember, she will get one tortilla and chop it, like chop the tortilla and fry it. So it almost come as it was ground meat. And we're going to have ground meat, but it actually was a tortilla. You see? So I think that she helped us so where that came from, I think that came from the example of my mom and even my dad. Sometimes he reframed things, but my mom was the master reframer. So I learned it from her.
Were you the oldest? How many siblings did you have?
Yeah, I'm the oldest. We're five. We're 5 children. I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest. So there was also kind of, I assume, like a sense of responsibility as the oldest, right?
Yeah.
You have to help with the family and you take care of the other kids and your brother's siblings.
Totally.
So did you find yourself reframing for your siblings sometimes when your mom couldn't?
Yeah. We did that quite often. We did that quite often. And it wasn't like me doing it for them. We just did it. We just did it. It was a theme in our family. Now, remembering back, I can think of 2 or 3, probably more if I think deeply, like how we will call it, let's pretend, let's play pretend game. Perhaps that's what it was. But in my mind now, looking back, I think that it's a reframe. And it was as I said, it was a defense mechanism back then. Is that how we cope with the lack of? We cope with, we didn't have enough.
One thing I've noticed from your work, from my research, is that it seems to be 2 pieces. There seems to be the piece, from my impression, there seems to be the piece of reframing and always moving forward. But there's something else about moving forward. going towards something, and not stopping and continuing. If you need to pivot, if you need to adjust, if you need to, find another path, you do that. And is this true? Like, do you feel that that's important? And so, like, where did that come from? This idea of moving forward or movement?
Back in the old days, I think that I love my dad, but he had, when we were a kid, I guess all kids, at one point they have a hate-love relationship with your parents, right? And he had this question for me all the time, and I still becomes a mantra for me now, is that, so what are you going to do about this? And every time that I will not like something, like the kids were bullying me or his question, he never solved it for me. He will ask me, so what are you going to do about this? So what are you going to do about this? And that became a mantra for me through my life. And I remember, the one day, I asked, I wanted a bicycle so bad, and I asked him, it's like, and we couldn't afford it. I knew that he couldn't afford it, but that didn't stop me from asking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he gave me like the equivalent of a quarter, less than a quarter. He said, start saving for it. And what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about this? And so yes, so the movement, I think that it has been, now that you mention it, I never thought about that. It is something that I do that I don't like to, I feel, gosh, I'm having a hard time putting words into this, but yeah, absolutely. I can see myself moving forward all the time. Now, the one thing that I do want to mention, and I think that this is intentional, I think that pivoting and shifting is also a way of moving forward for me.
Totally.
Because I can see myself, changing courses or pivoting or doing all sorts of different things. But yeah, to your point, this movement, I think that is something that has defined me as well. I didn't realize. Thank you for bringing that up, and appreciate it.
Absolutely. No, it's really an honor to talk to you. I don't know why I feel like I relate to you. And I have not gone through the challenges that you have gone through. Maybe my dad has. Maybe that's why. When people hear your story, what is it that you think they see, and what is it that they may misunderstand?
I think that the biggest thing here, and I'm going to start getting emotional here. And it's happening right now, is that people underestimate their own journey. And you just said it yourself. I haven't gone through this. I don't know what it is. But you have your own journey. And you said earlier, I relate to you. And I see you, man, and I'm like, holy cow, this guy is amazing. So I think that what I want, and that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book that I wrote, is Ordinary Resilience, is that I think that the severity of the situations that we have gone through is irrelevant, as opposed to what do we do with the experiences that we have and the intentionality that and I think that is the biggest thing, is that we tend to see people, to your point, oh my God, you have done this, you have done that. And yes, I have done this, I have done that. But that to me is the way I live. And my experiences are my own, and your experiences are your own. And I think that a lot of times we underestimate our own experiences because they don't seem to be as big as somebody else's. So the key for me is to bring that and say, man, when you say that, you're underestimating your own journey. And it's not what your experience is, what you're doing with what you have learned.
Thank you for that. What comes up for me when you say that is two things. One, it makes me think of Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. I don't know if that's true, but you and him say that, so that must be true because two people have experienced. So it must be true, which makes me think of my son. So I took my son to jiu-jitsu, And after the first 3 classes, he's 5 years old and he was wrestling with these 4 or 5-year-olds, and it was much too easy for him because he's strong and very, very athletic. So the teacher took him to the next group, which was the 7 to 9-year-olds. And so when we arrived there, like we went and he was happy, and then he saw that he was going to go into the 7 to 9-year-old group. He's 5, and he was stopped and he started crying. He was like, no. Basically, I said, like, look, you don't have to go. It's your choice. But this moment of having fear and practicing courage will happen many times in your life. So you can practice that now. And he chose to. But what makes me think is that, like, maybe it's not so much about the thing, but it's about the choices we make when we face whatever the thing is. That might become measure to whatever our souls need, whatever. But, like, how do we practice what we practice, whatever that is? That's what comes up for me when you say that.
I want to think that I like to think that I am intentional about the things that I do, and including raising my children. I don't know if I shared with you when we were in Nebraska. We have a little ritual every time that I take them to school. And the ritual is, we have a little rock. And we've been doing this for, I don't know, since my daughter was 3 or 4 years old, and the ritual is whoever is holding the rock has to say 3 things what we're grateful for. So I'm grateful for this, and then we pass the rock around. And then I ask them, so what kind of family are we? And they say, we are the grateful family. And I asked them, what kind of people are we? And originally it was, we are strong, kind, confident, and resilient. Now they expanded it as to we are the strong, confident, strong and resilient, inclusive, nice, and joyful. And then I asked them, and what do we do every day? And they say, we help other people. And what do we do every day? We help other people. And to your point earlier about, I think that what I'm trying to do with them is to form an identity. So when my kid is misbehaving, because it happens, I ask them, is this what kind people do? Or if they don't want to do something, it's like, is this what resilient people do? I said, no, I'm resilient, I'm going to do this. And they do it. I think it's a few months ago. We went to do some zip lining in Tahoe, and we climb up, and my son, and he started crying. He started crying. And he said, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Topaz, and all of a sudden, he just stood and said, feeling my fear, I'm going to do it anyway. Feeling my fear. And he started doing it. And I'm like, holy cow. You see what I'm saying? Because that's what I want them to do is to establish an identity. And I think that a lot of times that's what we miss, is to exercise on our identity. Like, who are we? Because that is almost the recipe for courage. The recipe for things.
The recipe for courage is having an identity, or am I missing something else?
Absolutely. Like, I mean, who is Topaz? So me, like, if you remember, when they say, who are you? Who is Luis? And I say, I'm a resilient motherfucker. That's how that's how I, and if I go one level down, I said, I am persistent, committed, and optimistic. So those 3 things allowed me to your point earlier, to go through life knowing that this is who I am and this is what I'm going to do, period.
What I'm hearing you say is that it's really helpful to have a sense of values that shape your identity, because that gives you the pillar upon which holds the architecture of your life.
Absolutely.
And what comes up for me is, I think it's really important to be clear that those values that shape your identity are values and not necessarily opinions, because I think what a lot of us confuse, and I think that's part of the things we're seeing in the polarization in America today, for instance, is that people feel that their identity are these opinions, whether they're libertarian or they're Republican or they're Democrat or they're progressive or they're woke or whatever. And like, that's who I am. And it's like, then the hardest thing to change is one's identity. That's the one that we hold on to the most. So if you're holding on to an opinion as though it's your identity, you're not going to change that opinion. And I think that's what we're seeing in the world today, is that we're not making that distinction between, is it your opinion or is it your values? Like, your value is what? Is being kind to people. Okay, that could be manifested in left, right, like many ways. So I think that's one thing, is really make that important distinction. And the other one is the idea that maybe our identity kind of changes over time. The thing that drove me in my 20s and 30s and got me to a certain space or whatnot, if I kept going on that level, I'd burn out, or it wouldn't fulfill me. And so I've been shifting. You know, it's like a rocket ship that goes out into space in order to like break through the atmosphere. It's got these two huge rockets of fuel and it's fire. But once it breaks the atmosphere and it's in space, it doesn't need that much fire. It doesn't need that energy, because it's too much. You just need a blow and you go. So this, in some sense, the spaceship or the rocket ship has to change. And I wonder if that can be applied to, that metaphor applied to like us changing our identity. You know, for instance, for me, I'm turning 50 next year, and one thing I'm trying to shift is to be softer. You know, I'm even trying to wear clothes that are softer. Like, I like to wear a jacket and poof, like I'm trying to wear things that are softer to help, like almost like an actor. Like, if I change the costume, then maybe the role inside will change, like my personality will change. You know, I'm trying to become softer. What's your feeling on that in terms of identity or just shifting? How do you see that through the different chapters of our lives?
Following your metaphor of the clothes that you wear, you know, my identity is my body. I cannot do anything about my body. The clothes that I wear are the behaviors and the opinions that you have. You can change those, and it is in your choice to actually change those clothes if you want. You see, so for instance, you know, I mean, if you remember when when we were kids, and there is always a kid, I win, I don't know later, you know, it's like making fun of kids because they won, you know,
right?
That's behavior, you know, that is, but if you look at the way I see it, that is a behavior. The identity is excellence. I'm just putting this, the excellence. I want to competitive. I want to win here. That is his identity. If you, or, you know, like 20 years later, you know, and now this guy is an executive, you know, and some executives still have the attitude, I am better than you. I'm better than you. The value hasn't changed. You see what I'm saying? They are still competitive. The behaviors and the opinions you can change. What you have inside, your values, those, my opinion is that we don't need to change them. We just need to redirect them, period. The worst thing that we can actually do is to try to change people. You know, we can't.
Beautiful. What I'm hearing you say is fundamentally the values, the principles, the identity remains the same throughout our life. So my question to you would be then, how do you know you've gotten to the bedrock, to the bottom, that is your thing? And, you know, what's your experience with that?
I have a question that I ask my clients or even people, you know, what are the three things that made you arrive to the place that you are today? You know, because we literally know what got us here. And sometimes those are values.
Sometimes they're values.
Yeah, sometimes those are the things that they say, well, I am a hard worker. Great. You know, that is a value of yours. I build relationships, you know, right. Relationships is a value.
What else could they be?
It could be behaviors. You know, like I am very competitive. Oh, great. You know, so competitive, what does that come from? I asked them, you know, and then if you peel the onion, perhaps it's excellence. What is underneath that? What is underneath that until you get to the value?
But then how do you know that, and maybe there is no answer. Maybe like you can keep peeling the infinite onion and it's just, at some point you just choose to stop. But how do you know there's nothing below excellence. Maybe it goes competitive to excellence, and if you peel that, it becomes something else. I mean, where do you know where the peeling ends, and where do you know where the bedrock is, or do you just choose it?
If you think about values, the definition is what you make them.
Meaning what you choose. You choose
So
them.
what you choose. So for instance, like what does, to me, what is persistent means, it might be different to you. And
Sure.
that is okay. What I think that is important for me is to define what that means for me.
Which is akin to like the thing you mentioned about the challenge. Like everyone underestimates their own journey. It's like, it's actually not about what it is externally, it's what it is internally.
And what it means to you. Exactly.
What it means to you.
And how are you going to use it? So, if you think, all the values are very subjective. They don't have necessarily a definition that is universal, because what is kind to me might not be the same definition of kindness to you. And that is okay, as long as I am living my values the way I understand it and the way I want to express them, period.
So you know what I just heard?
What?
I just heard your two superpowers. Repeat it again. Because you said one question is, what does it mean to you? Which is the reframing. What is it? What are you going to make it mean to you? Mm-hmm. I can make it mean one thing. You can make, and then the other thing you said is, how are you going to use it? Which is like the movement forward. It's interesting.
Which is my dad word.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with this?
What are you going to do with it? So let me ask you the question you ask your clients, which is, what are 3 things that made you get to where you are?
I have thought about this, and perhaps the way I will respond it is very almost,
scripted, like it.
I think that is number one is reframing is a key for me.
Right.
And the other one is, again, the labels that I'm giving it now are different from when I started trying to understand, myself. Committed, persistent, and optimistic.
Wait, did you just say? But are you saying that your values were different when you started than they are now? Is that what you just said?
No.
They've always been the same.
They've always been the same until I decided that these are the values that I want to embrace. There are values of kindness, there are values of, but the things that define me, I think that is committed persistence and optimism.
What happened that you realized or chose those are the 3?
It was in Houston in the middle of the night. I think that it was, I don't know what time it was, but it was in darkness, and I was on the floor crying. And at a moment, I was thinking about ending my life, literally. And at that moment, I wasn't thinking about should I do it, but the question was how I was going to do it. At that moment, my ex-wife had left. I had nothing left. It was horrible and a horrible situation. And as I was thinking about this, somewhere, somehow, the image of my mother appeared in my head. And I realized, oh my gosh, I cannot do this to her. If I do this to her, she will suffer. And she will blame herself. And, coming from a really Catholic family, she will say, I'm going to hell and she's not. And that is going to be, a burden for her for the rest of her life. So I couldn't do that to her. So at that moment, I said, I need to get better. I need to get better. And that's where the commitment comes in. I need to get better. That's when I defined that perhaps I was doing it all along, but at that moment is when it clarified. I need to get better. The persistence came like, shit, man, this is not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. And I remember, reframing, this is funny, reframing my recovery as my marathon and Ironman training. I wasn't recovering from my health. I was training for a marathon. I was training for an ultra marathon. So
we'll just say that again. You're saying that instead of saying, I'm going to deal with the brain tumor and recover from that surgery and that, Like you went something further upriver. You're like, I'm going to train for a marathon. Because if I have to train for a marathon, all the other things are going to have to happen anyways.
Yeah. And the persistence come from, I knew that it was not going to be easy. And I knew that it was going to be painful. So that persistence is that, but what makes it possible is the commitment that I made to get better. And finally, it's like, but I can see the finish line at the end of this. I'm getting there, and that fits everything. So I think that was genesis of how I decided that those three things are going to define me, and those are going to be my values. Going back to to what we were talking about earlier, is that there are so many things that we want to become. We want to be kind, we want to do this, we want to do that, and I think that for me is finding an anchor, almost like your operating system. My operating system is that commitment, persistence, and optimism. That's what I do. And that can be applied the way I see it. That can be applied to anything in my life, my marriage, my kids, my work, my remodel.
I assume that different people have different core values, right? I assume that maybe your wife don't have those three. Maybe she has three other ones, or maybe there's one overlap. Is that right? Or are you saying those are the three that are the best?
Those are the primary core values for me. You see what I'm saying? Those are the things that I do. You see? Yeah. Our family has values as well, and those they don't conflict with each other. They are actually complementary to each other. My wife is, my God, she is definitely persistent and definitely committed. She needs to work on the optimism part.
And the thing about Houston, was that a year after you had overcome the first brain tumor?
Yes, it was within the year. Yeah. So
had you run the marathon at that point or not yet?
Actually, yes. I did run my first marathon was before that, because my first marathon, I ran it with my wife. We did it together.
You did it together. But then that relationship ended, and then you were rebuilding. Explain to me why you chose to study fungal genetics and plant genomics. That was what you got your master's and your PhD in, right?
Yeah.
Why that? Why those studies?
So I grew up in, Guatemala, and in a rural town. And I think that, I don't know if you remember when people ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? I never thought that I was going to be a professor or what I'm doing now. I think that at the time, all I wanted to do was literally, I wanted to be a shoe shining boy. The reason why I wanted to be a shoe shining boy is because the shoe shining boys didn't go to school and they had fun all day long. That was my first choice.
Yeah.
My second choice was I want to be a farmer.
Farmer.
I wanted to become a farmer. And I went to a high school in Guatemala. There was a boarding school in a farm. It's a government school that trains students to become agricultural agents of change. Back then, that school was what they call almost like a technical school. You go to the school because you needed to work after high school. There was no path to college. That has changed. So that was perfect for me because that's what I needed to do, finish high school and then start working. I wanted to become a farmer. So I went there specifically to learn agriculture so I can help farmers and become a farmer. The war ended. And then the Henry Kissinger decided that they wanted to help the areas that were affected by the war and conflict. They started as a program that is called Scholarships for Peace. And the whole idea is to bring people from, these areas to the United States so they can learn English and learn a new something, and then they can go back and become beacons of peace and beacons of change. And it happens that I was selected, so I came here and I study horticulture.
Where did you go? You went to California? Was it
Actually, I
really
came to a community college in California.
California? Right.
So here is what happened when I came here. I realized, oh my gosh, it completely opened my eyes. Back home, my world ended at the end of my village. Let's put it my town. I didn't know what was possible. When I came here, it's like, holy cow. So I made a commitment at that time to come back and finish my education. So I went back to fulfill it was community college. So I went back home to fulfill my commitment to the scholarship. But in that process, I started looking for other opportunities. I couldn't afford it. So I went to every single embassy in Guatemala to see if there is a possibility that I could get a scholarship. And I got 3 offers. One was to Israel. One was to Australia. And the other one was to Florida. The difference between the Australian embassy and the Australian scholarship and the US is that I needed to finance my ticket and to get to Australia, and I couldn't do that. Yeah. And the difference between the Florida and the Israeli scholarship is that the Israeli wasn't a degree, it was just training. They were going to put me in a kibbutz and help, which is great at that point. But I wanted a degree, so I came here. I came here with the intention of continuing the agriculture path. So I got a degree in ornamental horticulture, but I took science classes and I loved them. And then I started, I did a master's in plant biotechnology. It's still related to farming, but it's plant. And then I was recruited to Michigan State to do a PhD in molecular biology and biochemistry, still related to plants. So going back to what we talked earlier about the analogy of the clothes and the body, I still wanted to be a farmer. The clothes change over time. Now I'm not doing the work, but I'm still involved in the process. And yeah, so that's how it's a long story, man. I hope that this is not,
No, it's great. But I want to ask you a question because what year was this when you went to Florida, or Reedley College and a community college, and then Florida?
Let me
what year is
see.
this?
So I graduated 2008, 2002, I believe.
2002. So quite a different America than it is now, especially with immigrants, right? Well, when you say I'm a resilient motherfucker, what I also project here in that, what I project on that when I hear, what hits me is like I'm going to express myself as I want to be expressed, and I'm not going to let fucking anybody else put me in a box. Like, I almost feel like you saying you're a resilient motherfucker is another way of saying like, I'm resilient to the forces that keep me down, but tell me who I have to be when I don't want to be that. Mm-hmm. Were there experiences in that time when you were studying and you're going for the PhD and like living that kind of stoked that fire in you? Were there things there that shaped you, or were you already like that before you arrived?
Going back, I think that, my life in Guatemala, it was hard. It was lots of hardship, lots of change, lots of uncertainty, lots of, so I think that when I moved here, I came with the attitude of defensiveness. But at the same time,
about what?
To protect myself. And
I see.
But the way it's expressed is, we talk about this, in Spanish, there is a formal way of expressing ourselves, is usted. So that carries a lot of respect, to people. And that's how I was raised in Guatemala. But when I finished college and I started working, there was a big contrast in how I was expressing myself and how I was being perceived. So, in other words, I still, defer to the oldest person. I was still to defer to the highest ranking individual. And whether I admit or no, I defer to, to the tallest, to the widest person. And in that process, people confuse the respect that I had with submission.
Aha.
And I didn't realize that until there was one particular moment where I was like, holy shit. We were going to present to a potential client. I was working as a consultant. And my boss says, we're going, a bunch of us, to impress the client, that there were a bunch of us. But he explicitly told me, don't talk, because I had an accent. And at that moment, I'm like, oh my gosh, I realized that. So then at that moment, I decided, I need to change how people perceive me. I started to be more intentional about the words that I use and how I talk about myself. And so when I said I am a resilient motherfucker, yes, that is a part of that particular journey of making room for myself and, making myself, almost show my strength that cannot be denied.
Do you see any of that strength in your 4 siblings?
Oh my God, yes.
All 4 of them?
Yeah.
Okay. Because that, it could go either way. It could be all of you or it could be just one of you. I know one professional boxer who was a sibling of 3, and his mom couldn't afford all 3 kids. And he was the oldest and he was the strongest. And she said, basically, like, I'm going to put you up for adoption. You got to go out. Like, I can't, but you're the strongest. You can manage it. And she sent him out. He became a very successful boxer, a professional boxer.
I can almost tell you how that feels. My dad had a horrible accident back then, and my mom couldn't afford to keep us. So we were sent out to different family members, uncles and aunts, because my mom couldn't do it. And besides, my mom had to take care of my dad as well. So we were distributed, if that is the word. And then, my dad got better, and then we came back home. But I gotta say, I think that the one thing that I have to give credit to my mom and dad, because they never, ever deny us of anything that they could not give us, but they never cut our wings to get whatever we wanted to do. They pushed us all the time.
How would you teach your kids resilience?
This is, when I was a kid, I only had one gift a year. See, one gift a year. And that was on my birthday. And my dad will say, you get to save it for Christmas because, the Christmas is coming. So I will have one gift a year. And now that I have children, you can imagine, how many toys they have. And to me, that was, holy cow, man. They need to appreciate not having anything. It was like, no, I grew up like, remember that story? I grew up with shoes. I had to walk on the snow, blah, blah, blah. And that's my lens. And then I realized that I was doing a disservice to them by trying to duplicate my own journey on theirs. It's different now. The one thing that I've been doing consistently is, like, I don't know what you do, but when you put the kids down, you tell them stories. I tell them stories, but I tell them stories about my family, about me, about my mom, my brother and sister. So they are aware of what we went through. And what I try to do is when we go to Guatemala, then we go and visit family. And then, because I think that it's not about limiting, for me, the way I see it, it's not about limiting what they have in order to show them that what they cannot have, but rather it is for them making the realization, oh my God, I am in a position of privilege. I can see that there are other people that don't have as much as I do. So I'm very intentional about them, making sure that they have a view of the world that is different from what they're living.
Mm-hmm.
And question that I have for them is, what are you going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Which my little kid hates. But having said that, sometimes, I give them options. As a parent, you have to give them options. So options are like, well, you need to go to bed. Do you need to go to bed now, or do you need to get 5 minutes from now? Mm-hmm. But it's still, I think that the key is, for me, is resilience is about being able to have options and exercise on those options.
Having options and exercising those options. And creating your options, right? Creating your options.
And one thing I say, not doing what you're doing what you're doing is an option.
Yeah.
Not doing anything is an option, and you have control over that. So I am so fan of 3 options. You can flip. Yeah, it's funny because when I picked them up from school, and I said, so what are the 3 things that we need to do when we're home? And they say homework, piano, and a shower. Those are the 3 things that they need to do when we come. Homework, piano, shower. In which order they want to do it is up to them.
I had a beautiful conversation with my son 2 days ago in the car, and I was trying to teach him the value of things, and because I don't see money as money. I see it as, well, for me, I used to see money as money, and that was very hard for me because I had not a good relation with money. It was like, and then I made this adjustment where I saw money as energy, profit as excess energy. And so when I was talking to him about the value of something like, I think it was sunglasses or in the car, and what I was able to do, and I just kind of fell in a conversation with him, was a translation of the value of something with my time, which was like, we have this car because mommy and daddy worked for it, which meant we spent time not with you. Like, we spent our time working and doing something, which meant we couldn't be with you. And so that's why we want to value this thing that we put energy and time into, because that time had a cost, which was not being with you. And that was really interesting to translate that. And he got it. He said, "Thank you, Pop. So let's respect this thing that we spent time on so that we don't have to buy another one, or that we don't break it, or we don't have it, so that I can spend more time." And I think, who needs a guru when you have children? Just the conversations you end up in, right? Just the mirroring that they offer you, the opportunities they offer you, the lessons they teach you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you end up saying something brilliant and you're like, holy shit, did I just say that? That was I'm a great dad. And then you do something else where you're like, I'm a horrible dad. I need to practice my patience.
And the thing is that there is not a manual for being a great dad. It's about trial and error. And
Right.
The way I see it is like, I'm trying to do my best, and that is a question that I ask myself in everything, is, did I do my best? And if the answer is, then, I'm okay with what I'm doing.
In the questionnaire, you wrote about feeling that there's not enough time. And will they be okay? And I guess my question to you is, what does it mean there's not enough time? And what does it mean that they'll be okay?
One of the questions in your questionnaire was, what are you most proud of? And the one thing that I'm really proud of is that I made it to today. That to me, this is the biggest gift, is that I am here standing talking to you. That I'm so happy and proud of that at the same time. At the same time, I also realize that the impact of my life is not just on me, but on my children. And I'm translating this two different things. One is, creating humans that are going to be kind, strong, confident, and resilient. But the other one is financial stability for them moving forward, moving up. And when I want to leave this world, I want to make sure that they are, and my wife are, in a path to success from those two fronts. And so I want to save as much money as I can. I want to make sure that, and the reality is that, I wanted to get an insurance, I am on, I am not applied for insurance. I am uninsurable, because of it.
Do you mean life insurance or health insurance?
Yeah, life insurance. Yeah, life insurance.
Because you had two brain tumors and they're like, we don't want to insure you.
Correct. So for me is when I mean, is it enough time is from those two ends, is to make sure that those kids are grow into two awesome human beings and they are financially secure, that they don't have to worry about stuff in the future. So is there enough time? I hope that I have enough time, but we don't know what's going to happen around the corner.
There's a question that we do on the and. Have you seen our and videos where people are talking and you see both faces? You seen our stuff? No.
I've seen it. Yeah. Yeah. I have. Yeah.
So there's one of these questions, which is very just powerful to give to parents. And someone gave it to me first. Well, when I was doing it with a friend of mine. And the question was, Topaz, or, Luis, what is it you want to hear from your children on your deathbed? What do you want your children to tell you in the last moments? What do you want to hear from them? That shit makes parents cry all the time. But there's only one answer. I've only heard one answer. I've heard it 3 times, so I don't have a huge data set, but I hear the same. Those 3 times I heard the same answer. What would you want to hear from them?
Thank you.
That's what you'd want to hear from them. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one that I'd want to hear is like, I'm going to be okay, Poppy. I'm going to be all right. Don't worry about me. I'm going to be okay.
I think that thank you is a version of that for me. Yeah.
It's like, thank you for preparing. Thank you for putting me in the position that I'm in, because I'm okay.
That's right.
You have a great line where you say, I don't want to be fearless, but I want to be fearless. I have a 2-part question for that. Like, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? Then the second part is like, where does fear still have a handle on you?
Where can I go with this? When my wife and I were thinking about having children, I resisted the idea. And the reason why I resisted the idea, it was thinking, I don't want them to grow up without a father because, I had a tumor, you don't know what's going to happen, a year from now, 2 years from now, whatever. I didn't want to grow, I didn't want them to grow without a father. And it was very hard for me to accept that was behind my attitude of not wanting to have children. That was a fear of mine. And one day, we were having this conversation. We had this conversation for many, many, many years. And then she said to me, Luis, why are you letting the fear of death rule the way you live? And I didn't understand that until later. And then I realized that, holy shit, that's what is happening to me. Fear is in the driver's seat. And I decided, she's right. Let's have kids. The fear, I'm still fearful about that. You see what I'm saying? And that is one of the reasons why. Is there enough time? I don't know. I'm still afraid. But fear is not the driver's seat anymore. I don't want to be fearless. I don't want the fear to disappear. I just want to fear less.
Do you have a practice or a ritual that makes you fear less?
And I don't think it's a ritual, but it's a way of living now. I just do things that I am not comfortable doing. I'm just go do them. I mean,
Hmm.
for many, 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 many years, I was afraid of skiing, and my defense mechanism was like, I don't want to break a leg. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And then my son decided that he loves skiing now. And so I needed to learn to ski to keep up with him. And fear wasn't the way of doing that. So I said, I need to do this. You see, and again, going back to, I need to do this. I need to be committed to do this. And I know that. So it's about that. It's about fearing less by doing the thing that scares the shit out of you.
Uh-huh. There you go.
Are you familiar with that term? Growth is at the outside of the comfort zone or something along those lines. I don't subscribe to that because that implies that you need to step out of your comfort zone and become fearless. What I subscribe to is to expanding my comfort zone. So I need to fear less by moving slowly toward the thing that scares me so I can expand my comfort zone.
What do you think life is designed you for, Luis?
I think that life has designed all of us to make our own choices and to find our own path. Whatever that is. The way I see it is that the biggest gift that life has given us is the power of choice. And it is my right and my biggest responsibility to exercise that gift. So if I were going to answer what life has designed you for is to make choices.
But what's it designed you for, you think?
That's a very hard question to answer. I don't know.
It's interesting. Well, I think one thing that comes up for me is like in Omaha when we're together, you made a really beautiful distinction about passion. You're like, people talk about passion, and it's a little bit, what I took from what you were saying is like, it's a little bit self-centered. It's like, what fuels me? What gives me joy? Instead of like, what's my purpose or what's my value, which is commensurate. Like in that question is you never be thinking about your effect on someone else and how you're contributing.
Yeah.
So I guess for you, it would be like, what is the thing that you feel you offer the most value to others?
I think that, have you read the book, Find Your Why by Diamond Sinek?
Sure.
Yeah. And the way he described why is that your why, your purpose, or your why has two components, your contribution and the outcome of that contribution. And so, for me, I feel that my gift is reframing. So my why is to reframe the important moments so we can adapt and thrive. And so my goal in life, if I could actually go back and summarize my coaching philosophy and even my parent philosophy is in one sentence. To act differently, we need to think differently. To think differently, we need to see differently. That's what I think that my job is with my children, with my clients, is to unlock options that they don't feel they have. But once they see them, they cannot unsee them anymore. Mm-hmm. So they can think differently and act differently.
How are you developing that? Like you've lived a life that imbues that, but how do you find yourself mastering that craft or crafting that skill?
For me, it's simple. And you started growing, when the question is, what are you going to do about this? And the minute you ask yourself that question, you can start seeing possibilities. Sometimes we see things black and white, and there are always different options. There are always different options. And sometimes what I've seen, even with myself now, that the minute I feel stress is because I am not considering all the options available.
I mean, for me, what comes up with the reframing and the different options is just asking a different question. And the way I articulate for me is like people are so focused on the answers when instead you should just focus on the question. Create a better question, construct a better question, construct a deeper question. And then as you construct different questions, different answers appear. In some way, the question shapes the answer.
Only, one question that I literally love asking my clients is, what if what you're thinking is not possible?
And what are the possible answers with that? What if, then what? Is that where they go?
Yeah. So like, the example that I have is that this individual was so stressed about needed to fire someone individual. I don't know if I can do this. We need to do this. But he was either firing or not firing. And I told him, what if firing is not an option? Then what? And then all of a sudden, he started thinking about, and then all of a sudden, there are different possibilities in there.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, what if the thing that I am considering doesn't exist? What else is there? What if the option of X is not available? Then what else?
That's a good one. I should put that. Yeah. I have this deck that we always end on, a self-edition.
Yeah.
And it's full of questions like that. So you're thinking about a dilemma or something, and then you pull out a question that makes you think about that against that dilemma. So let's just see what comes up. If you're thinking about something in your life now, you don't have to tell me what it is. Tell me when to stop. I'm just wondering what question comes up.
All right. So, why am I? Do I need to answer that thing?
No. If you do, I mean, if you want to, you can, but we don't have to.
Why am I? Why not?
Exactly. Why not?
Yeah. Do I need to have an explanation of why am I, as opposed to what am I going to do with who I am?
Thank you for this conversation. Thank you for this time. I really appreciate it. It was beautiful. I want to thank you for joining me in this conversation. I hope it had some utility. I hope it offered a reflection of what maybe life is shaping you for, and maybe it offered a missing piece to the puzzle of your life. It was a pleasure for me, and I appreciate your time and attention. Please subscribe to our channel so that you can stay abreast of all the new episodes we have coming out. And until next time, thank you so much. Guts is a Skin Deep media production. The show is produced and edited by Gonzalo Torres Ocampo, with editorial support from Anthony Cabral, and executive produced by me, Topaz Adizes. Special thanks to all the guests who showed guts, without whom there will be no getting under the skin. Interested in joining our community and following this journey? Visit guts.podcast on YouTube, Instagram, and theskindeep.com for in-depth conversation card games that create the space for connection, intimacy, and deeper conversation.